Welcome to Crush Your Money Goals, where we dive deep into all things money as your 2 millionaire mentors. I'm Bernadette Joy.
And I'm Stephanie Gonzalez. This season, we're shifting gears and focusing on something that affects us all, quitting with confidence.
From financial habits to career transitions, we're here to guide you through the journey of taking charge of your finances and pursuing your dreams fearlessly.
Tune in every week as we share tips, stories, and expert insights to help you crush your money goals and embrace change with open arms. Welcome to Season 7, Quit with Conviction.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode with Bernadette, me, and Steph. Hello. And we have one of our favorite humans, not just creator, not just like fellow entrepreneur, but just one of my favorite humans on the planet. We have Jannese here. If you don't know her, I feel like I don't even have to, I feel like you should just go by a first name basis at this point, because there's no other Jannese that I know that is as badass as you. I was at her conference in Puerto Rico last year, which was my first time in Puerto Rico, which is so awesome. And a couple of the people from the conference are now part of the Crush Club. And there, at least once a month, there's a little love fest that Jannese doesn't know about, that we're all just like, can you believe that she brought us all together? And what a badass bitch she is. And so if your ears are ever ringing, it's Monica, Sandra, Diego, Carla, in our group that are just, we're just like, let's just discuss what a badass person she is. So just so you So for the people who don't know who you are, can you just give us a high level of what you do today, and then we'll go back into your backstory?
I'm glad you prefaced that with what you do today, because God knows I've had 17 identities in my almost 39 years on planet Earth. And I think that's one of those things that I didn't know I actually had permission to do. So at this point, I am a full-time content creator who specializes in the field of personal finance. I have a podcast called Yo Quiero Dinero, where I talk primarily to people of color, women of color, about investing, entrepreneurship, and why, despite all of the systemic bullshit that goes on in the world, we are capable of building wealth and we are worthy of it. And so I do that with my podcast, social media content, and now my forthcoming book, Financially Lit.
Which, can you do a little bit so we can see the big cutout? Even better.
Shoulder. I mean,
even
the
better.
book.
First of all, I love the photo. I love watching the behind the scenes of you doing this photo shoot, which was so awesome. And also this title, oh my God, so good. I'm just like, how has this title not existed before? And also, this is the best title for a personal finance book that I've seen in a long time. So I'm super, super pumped. And
it's a homage to all the millennials and our, lexicon, because I feel like the word lit is something that I'm never going to let go, but it also happens to be the first 3 letters of literate. So it's too good. It's too perfect. And you know what's funny? I've heard from a lot of authors how much of a hard time they've had with their publishers about their book titles. And this was so not the case for me. I didn't have to change it. The publisher loved it from the beginning. It's just, when you know, and I think it's just a reminder, trust your instincts when you're out here creating, because 9 times out of 10 it's going to lead you in the right direction.
Can I weigh in on this one though? My sense is they knew who they were signing up to bring on when they decided to bring you to the table. And that's one of the things that I think has been so amazing about your journey. And we'll have you talk about that in a bit, but there are no questions about what you stand for and how you show up. And I just want to say thank you to you for doing that, because I think you give us the ability to have permission to do that too. And a lot of us struggle with that. You don't seem to, but we'll get into that.
Yeah. In a second. No, thank you. I appreciate that. I feel like whenever somebody tells me oh, wow, you're actually the same that you are in real life, that you are on the mic and shit. And I'm just like, well, what other options are there? It's at some point I'd have way too many identities to keep track of. And that just sounds exhausting.
But also, a testament that it shouldn't be that rare, but it is. And we'll talk about that, where I've also come to the realization, and you're such a good role model for me in that, of, being able to show up as our authentic selves is something that has been very challenging for a lot of people because of finances, right? Because you're afraid that that boss is going to see what you're posting online, or that family member who always has something to say about what you're doing, like can say something about it. So we'll put it in the show notes, but the quote that you have here is, I bought a $430,000 house in a state I hated living in, spent $60,000 on 2 degrees to pursue a career that didn't interest me, and spent $50,000 to marry a toxic person because that's just what you do when you've been together for 5 years, all in pursuit of the American dream. I got rid of the house, the job, and the man, and I'm happier and more alive than I've ever been. Let this be a sign that it is, wait, let me say this. Let this be a sign that it may be time to dismantle the dream you've been sold and build a dream you actually want. Have you actually read this out loud to yourself? Like, because sometimes I tweet stuff and I don't actually hear it.
Well, that shit went viral in a way that I did not expect it to go viral on. And I was like, oh, so I'm not the only person who feels like I got fucking scammed with the American dream. Go figure. Let's talk about it.
That's basically what we're going to talk about today, which is what was the scam? Why did you feel like you bought into it at first? And for the listeners here, what we're really hoping that people will take away from this episode is, if you're like at that moment, you're like, holy shit, I've been scammed. What do I do next? What do I do next? So.
God, it's like when you watch The Matrix, it's like Neo first discovering that there's the Matrix, and then you're just like, oh my God, what do I do with this information? I think that's the scariest part of this whole journey, is just realizing, oh, everything that I was told would make me happy is actually making me miserable. And this definition of success that I've been told I should pursue is actually putting me in therapy and on like antidepressants. So there's something just not right here. I had several of those like aha moments. The first one I would say was probably maybe 5 years into my corporate journey, where it was just like a mundane day, 27 years old. And I'm just like, I got to do this shit for how long? And I see all these people around me who are, decades older than me start getting laid off, because I was lucky enough to experience not only graduating into the Great Recession, but then witnessing the ramifications of that, like in real time, of seeing folks who had invested 20, 30, 40 years into a career and just be discarded like trash. It's like, you got 30 minutes to pack your shit, and oh wow, there goes, Ed from accounting, who's literally dedicated his entire life to this job, and you don't even get a thank you. So that was the first like, oh, maybe this whole like security situation in corporate America is not so safe and stable. And then I had that personally happen to me in 2014. So I was on the precipice of turning 30, in the throes of a quarter life crisis by any stretch of the definition. And I walked into work one day, January. I'll never forget it. The night before, I don't know why I had the intuition to check my calendar, but I got some random invitation from my manager for a 9 a.m. meeting. And I was like, this is weird. Why are you sending meeting invites on a Saturday? And then I look at who's on the meeting, and it's him and HR. I'm like, oh, okay. I know what's about to go down here. So I drive into work, which was already a 45-minute commute. There was a blizzard forecast for that day, but of course they're going to make us come into the office, because unless there's snow on the ground, you can't work from home. I walk into work. I am sat at a conference table. I'm slid over a manila envelope, and they're like, your position has been eliminated, unfortunately. You're going to receive a 3-month severance package, and HR will follow up with details on how you can retain your healthcare benefits and retirement and blah, blah, blah. Your manager is going to escort you over to your desk. You'll have about 30 minutes to pack your things, and that's pretty much it, right? So I'm there in shock, walked over to my desk. Manager's watching me put all my shit in there, make sure I'm not stealing, I guess like Post-its or whatever the fuck was the point of this. And I get back into my car and I sit there for about 5 minutes. I'm like, okay. And then I proceeded to drive home in the middle of the said blizzard that began while this was happening. And the 45-minute commute turned into 3 hours. And then I got home and I was like, so this is what it's like to be an adult.
Wow.
And that, I think that was the most impactful moment for me, because I realized right then and there, like, I will never allow myself to be in a position where my livelihood, my financial security is in the hands of someone else. And I guess you can say that's kind of the origin story of everything that has happened since then.
You know, first of all, what a day.
What a day.
That's like the movie quality kind of day, though. Like, I feel like we need to make a reenactment of this, like, as a...
can see the snow coming in from the side, and you're yeah. I've been on the other side of the table sliding the envelope, and I hate it every single time, because I got into leadership because I wanted to help people, not necessarily the company. And I got to know people in that work. And so, you know, coming out of that and moving on into what you're doing now, at some point, Jannese, because even for me, I've had to reckon with the thoughts in my own head and giving myself permission to know that I'm worthy of all the things that I've now accomplished. What has happened for you in the last decade? And what have you worked on to remind yourself that you're worthy of the things you're accomplishing and the impact you're having on people?
God, that's all right. We're getting deep now. You know, it's crazy because I don't think it's hit me yet. And, you know, I don't know if it ever will. I feel like I still have a lot of imposter syndrome about just like what I do and the impact that this stuff has. And I think it really hits me when I do meet people in person, whether it's like at FinCon or one of my events. And just seeing folks like have actual tears in their eyes when they talk about listening to a podcast episode that made them have a conversation with their partner. And now there's like a more equitable way that they move with money, or they started investing or paying off debt. Like, I just think it's always a constant reminder of just like how important the work that I do is. And it reminds me to like never get to a place, especially as a creator with a big audience, where I feel better than, you know. And I remember some of the podcast, some of the feedback coming out of my event in Puerto Rico. One of the biggest takeaways that a lot of people had was like, you had the speakers sitting in the audience with us. Like, there was not a VIP section. You didn't have to pay extra for access to these people. They were just like normal humans that we follow on social media that happen to have like 100,000 followers, right? And it was so like, I didn't realize that that's what I was doing, just because that's how I operate as a person. I'm just like, okay, we're all like human beings. Like, let's fucking treat each other as such. But I think maybe that's sort of a subconscious way that I operate too, because I was bullied as a kid. And I just have never vibed with the idea of like them versus us and thinking that you're better than somebody. So I think it's just kind of woven into how I move as a person, you know?
I love that.
Yeah.
I think, you know, as someone who has been on your podcast, and it was the first guest interview I ever did, I was just like losing my mind and like prepping for it. And I was like, Jannese is letting me be on her podcast. Holy moly. You allow people to take that step because you're approachable and believe in themselves that they can work or have an engagement or discuss, have a conversation with you. Granted, you have a business, right? So there's some point where you're going to get paid and all those great things, right? Like, make sure we do that. But I think it's a real testament to your point of how you were brought up and the experiences that you have. And for me, you know, saying thank you to you for having the vote of confidence, just even allow me to tell my story. And I see you do that for so many people on your podcast. And that's what makes it amazing to listen to.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I always, when I've met people that I thought they were one way and they were, it was a disappointment, you know, I've always have kind of this subconscious thing where I don't want people to feel when they meet me that famous saying that's like, never meet your heroes. Like, I never want people to have that experience with me, just because like I know personally what it's like to meet those people that you're just like, oh God, this is who you really are. This is all just a facade. For me, I'm just like, especially as a creator with an audience who like trusts me, I find that to be a really a responsibility with a lot of gravitas that I do not take lightly.
And I think, part of the reason that people trust you on this, and I'd love to get your thoughts on how you came to this, right, is one of the things that is consistent about feedback from you is that like you lay all your cards out on the table, right? Like, I mean, I will say famously, put your like divorce proceedings, right, online, right? And I've shared this like beautiful love story that is, I continue to follow like my favorite telenovela of just like, hey, what are they doing? Where are they going? What's happening? Right? Like, and I think one of the things that I personally love too is that, you have not been shy about, for lack of a, better word here, of like calling out the haters of just like, I'm doing me, like y'all, I don't know what your deal is, but, and like, I've watched some instances where like, this is some bullshit. Like, here's what someone said to me. Here's what someone did or whatever. Right. So, but we talk to so many women who either internalize that or feel like they are the ones who attracted that or feel like they deserve that. And so what has allowed you to feel not only like just putting it out there, but feel confident in putting that kind of content out?
Start your freedom plan today with Crush Your Money Goals. You can transform your financial future with our personalized program. Join me, Bernadette Joy, your millionaire mentor, and unlock your potential. In just 90 days, build the skills to grow your wealth and secure your financial future. Your future is waiting. Enroll now at crushyourmoneygoals.com.
Well, I feel like if you're not creating from a space where you're sharing your lived experience, like what are you actually doing? Right? Like, you are the expert in your life. And I feel like life, just the act of being alive is like the greatest teacher we can have. One of the things that I've talked about when it comes to the book is when I was first thinking about the proposal, I didn't even have a plan to talk about love and money in the book. And it wasn't until I was in the throes of a divorce in the middle of this book writing process that I was like, you know what? There's a lot of money shit happening with this situation. And there's a lot of things that I did proactively that women who are building wealth need to be thinking about, like prenups, like postnups, like having hard ass conversations about money in general with your partners. And, I had to remind myself that as somebody who educates women about money, we also need to talk about not just making it, but like protecting it, because we are the first generation of women who even have access to the ability to do this. So no wonder you feel completely unequipped to manage this shit, because your mom didn't have this problem. Your grandma didn't have this problem. I'm out here about to be the first millionaire in my family. Who the fuck am I going to ask? And so, I think it's just like I've become self-aware enough when I experience moments in life that are also teaching moments for my audience. And I think that's what makes me not be like too self-conscious about sharing it, because I know there's going to be value, versus creators who are just gratuitous and just put shit out there for likes and clicks and follows, and there's no actual substance behind it. Because there's a lot of my life that even though people think they know, they really don't know every aspect of my life. I don't share a lot about my family. I don't share a ton about my relationship. There are some areas in my life that I consider to be more sacred and that are just not as relevant to what my audience needs to know about me in order to get value. And so I think it's just kind of an experimentation process that we all have to go through as creators to set those boundaries.
It's an interesting perspective, and we were kind of talking offline before we started recording, which we should have recorded straight out of the gate, right? But we were talking about how you look so at ease in this like grandiose moment of your book coming out. And what you just said kind of hit a point for me. It was like you're creating out of a space of genuine, true authenticity. So you're not having to recreate anything. Like, it is what it is. See it for what it will be. You're not even having to edit anything. It is raw, right? And so it's interesting to see you navigate this and take on more and more, but outside looking in, it seems like you're at more ease than we've ever seen before. What have you had to kind of shed or quit in your mind about what this successful entrepreneur influencer life looks like, besides, being close to your community and what you've already shared so far? But what have you really had to think about and be intentional about in this kind of boss phase of ease, is what I'll call it?
I love this question because I don't think that enough people ask themselves it. And it's like, when is enough enough? I think there is this endless treadmill of success that we are somehow conditioned to want to pursue, right? Like if you have your first 6-figure year, then you better make the next one multiple 6 figures. And then the next one has to be 7. And then we're building a multi-million-dollar company. And I'm just like, for fucking what? To be on another version of the hamster wheel that I escaped corporate America to, like, if y'all want to be out here building $100 million businesses, like, more power to you. But I know what I need to live the life that I want to live. And it does not involve having a team of 30 people, of, 7-figure launches. And I think I've had to give myself permission to redefine what success looks like for me on my terms. And what that looks like for me is making enough money to not have to worry about how much the grocery bill is, being able to upgrade to first class, being able to work remotely, being able to take 1 month off every quarter, spending time with my partner, spending time with my dogs, with my family, with my friends. Like, that to me is actual wealth. That to me is actual success. Not being beholden to this big ass machine that you've built, that now all these people rely on you to be successful and to keep winning and to keep killing it. That's just not anything that I'm interested in. And I'm okay with, like, never being a multi-million-dollar business owner if I get to live the life that I live now, because I'm fucking winning by all definitions.
Both me and Steph were like, yes, because we had a conversation about, like, this podcast season in particular is trying to find the edge of what is enough and what do different people find to be enough for them. And you and I had a conversation on your podcast, I want to say over a year ago now, about, like, wealth guilt, right? Of, like, okay, we are the first ones in our families who are doing the type of work that we do, making the type of money that we make doing what we do. And people either get it or they don't, or whatever, right? And what I find really helpful I like to consider the three of us like peers in the space, right? Like, we're all doing somewhat similar things in our own ways. But what I found really refreshing about the conversations I've had with you is, like, you are constantly navigating, like, what is that enough? Because I would even say a year ago, we were probably in a different mind space. Both of you were like, both of us, I remember us, we were kind of like, fuck this. Like, what are we doing? We were definitely in this mode of, like, what the fuck are we doing? Yeah, we were both exhausted. Like, is this it? Is this what we're supposed to be doing? And so, I love for the last year that you've been navigating that and deciding what is and is not enough for you. Have there been particular people that have helped you navigate that decision? Or, like, was this, like, all in your head, like, a little kind of thing?
Yeah. So, just a side note, our conversation on the show inspired a whole chapter of the book, which is called When Jenny from the Block Becomes Jenny with the Bag. And it's about that, like, making it out and then realizing, like, oh, so I feel all kinds of emotions about this, the shame and the guilt, and, like, oh God, I got to be everybody's savior now. And I actually featured the story when your dad passed away, how you were the sibling that was able to come to the rescue, if you will, just because of the options that money had granted you, and how those are the moments that have to be why this is something that we pursue, this wealth and this financial security, because it's those times when you get to live the experience of freedom. Just knowing that at the drop of a hat, I can literally cancel all my meetings and go be home with my mom or my dad or whoever needs my help and just not have to worry about the money. Like, that's the whole fucking point.
Yep.
So just shout out to you for inspiring that conversation, because I feel like that chapter is going to be very impactful. But you know, I'm a personal development junkie. So like I listen to a lot of podcasts. I do a lot of like that self-development work. So I think for me, it's been an active exercise in just being very self-aware of emotions that come up for me and like where are they stemming from, you know? And I think for a lot of us, including myself, this like comparison trap that happens on social media of just feeling like you're not doing enough or you know, you're not as quote unquote successful as you should be for how long you've been doing this. I think it's very easy to fall into that trap. And I've just had to be very conscious about understanding what are the sacrifices behind what are the sacrifices behind the success that we see? You know, because for somebody who I look at who is a multi-million-dollar business owner, they absolutely have employees. Nobody's doing that shit on their own. And with employees comes responsibility, especially if you're a public-facing CEO. All you need is one viral clip, one thoughtless quote, you know, one slip up. And not only are you at the risk of dismantling what you've built, but now these people that have entrusted you to be their leader are at risk. Mm-hmm. And I just have never felt comfortable with putting that much pressure on myself because that to me doesn't feel like freedom. So it was an active decision over time to one, be conscious of my emotions, be conscious of what expectations I'm placing on myself and who's actually projecting those expectations on me. Because 9 times out of 10, it's not us. And this is, I think this ties right back to the quote or the tweet that you read, because a lot of us are following these invisible scripts about what quote unquote success looks like. It's the 6-figure job. It's the house with the picket fence. It's the 2.5 kids. It's the husband. And it's just like, is that actually the shit that you want? Or are you just operating from an autopilot? Mm-hmm. Did someone tell you that you should want to pursue this career in XYZ because it makes a lot of money? Do you fucking like it? Like, ask yourself that. Do you like being married? Do you like the thought of being a mom? Like, there's just so many things that we're conditioned to believe that's just what you do. Mm-hmm. And I invite folks to ask themselves, like, the life that you're living right now, is this the life that you designed? Or is this someone else's project that you're fulfilling? Mm-hmm. And I don't think some people would like the answer to that question. Mm-hmm. But when you come to the realization of like, oh shit, nope, this ain't my life. Now you have to decide what are you going to do about it?
I'm playing that back in my head. Is my life someone else's project? Is my life someone else's project, right? Like, is that?
Well, I mean, we hear that a lot from parents too. It's just like, oh, you know, I would love for my daughter to go to XYZ school because I never could. Or I'd love for her to become a doctor because she'd be the first one in the family. And then we can just brag about like Dr. blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, but what do you want? Yeah. Ask yourself, but what do you want?
Yeah.
And everybody else's opinion, cool, that's great. They're usually unsolicited. So like take that with a grain of salt. But like your voice needs to be the North Star for how you're moving. Because we only get one opportunity to do this shit right here, this thing called life. Mm-hmm. And how many people have talked to an elderly family member who have experienced the death of a loved one who in their last days is so full of regret for so many of the decisions that they've made because they've been operating in autopilot and they just didn't know how to change the script.
Yeah, I think for us too, we think a lot about those things that we thought we wanted and were told. And we think a lot when it comes to being intentional with our boys. Number one, for me as a woman, right? Demonstrating to them what a woman can do, is capable of, no ifs, ands, or but, her power, that type of thing. Like I remember I was talking to Gigi one day and I brought Ben in and I was like, I'm talking to a boss mom. And he was like, look, she has curly hair like me and she's a boss mom. And so now, you know, whenever I talk about her book or whatever, I'm like, Ben, this was the boss mom that we were talking. And so I refer all these women that I work with by name, and I try to give them an opportunity to see who they are. Like this weekend when I went to a speaking engagement, they're going to see the video so they can see mom doing those things. But we're trying to think really intentionally about what we put in front of them so that they don't fall into the same things that we thought we should have or needed to believe in. And of course, living internationally was one decision, but we have to be really intentional about living every day that way for them, because it can be very easy to fall by what we thought we knew and put that on them too.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest gift you can give your kids is like the ability to be free thinkers, of just like questioning things, you know, because I think a lot of the times when I refer back to childhood, it was like, nope, don't argue with me. Don't speak up. Don't question why things are like that. And it's just like, we're doing a big disservice to the next generation if we don't ask them to be critical of everything, because there's a lot of shit that needs to be addressed. And the first step to doing that is just like being able to speak up when something's not right. And so, you know, if you can't give your kids anything else, like give them the ability to exercise their power with their voice.
I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's close out on your book here. I would love for you. Here's what I thought was super interesting. When you mentioned doing the book and they were looking for competitors, quote unquote, there were none. So talk a little bit about who this book is for and what are you hoping that, you know, the reader is going to walk away with, both like tangibly and like emotionally.
Attention ladies, want to be a debt-free millionaire? I'm your co-host Stephanie, and I'm here to help you activate your hard-earned income and achieve financial independence. For being a Crush Your Money Goals listener, I invite you to book your free personal one-on-one consultation with me today and get started on your wealth building journey. Visit www.womenswealtheffect.com/free. That's www.womenswealtheffect.com/free and take control of your financial future. Don't wait.
Yeah. So this book is intended to be like the first all-in-one money guide specifically for the Latina community, because again, like it did not exist. And the fact that Latinos as a whole are the second largest population in the United States is just wild to me. Like, oh shit, like nobody's talking to us. That's crazy. So that's the intention. And I say the Modern Latinas Guide on the cover because we are a new generation. We are not our mothers and grandmothers who have just like accepted the patriarchal systems as they are and have just learned how to survive. Like we're done with that part. We don't have to do it anymore. And so this is really the guide to just becoming that self-fulfilled, that self-actualized version of yourself with the power of money. So when I was thinking about the structure of the book, I wanted it to be an all-in-one guide, very much like I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. Like, you know, that's the only book he ever needs to write because it's literally an all-in-one guide. And so I said, if I hate this process of writing a book, I'm at least going to put everything in my power in this one thing that will live on beyond me. And, you know, y'all can make 17 versions once the world of crypto and NFTs and all that shit evolves. Like we'll just keep adding to it. But I really do intend it to be the book that follows you throughout life. We start with acknowledging these systemic issues that are stacked against us, but it's just a reference point to help people understand, like, even though there is the racial wealth gap, even though women are still not getting equally paid, even though capitalism sucks, there are things that we can do. And then that's when we go into the breadth of the book. We talk about everything from saving, investing, budgeting, all the standard stuff you would expect to see in the book. But again, we talk about higher level stuff too. Insurance, estate planning, prenups, finding your financial squad or your advisory team that is going to help you navigate those next levels of wealth. And I really want this book to be the guide that someone gets on their like 18th birthday or their high school graduation, that it's like, girl, keep this with you. This is going to be the Bible of money and it's going to follow you throughout your journey and any situation that you confront, whether that's, you know, having a hard conversation with your fiance about how you're going to commingle your money, or talking to mom about what she wants her end of life care to look like, everything in between. That's what I hope this book will be. It's the book that I needed. And I hope it's the book that changes a lot of people's lives.
I wish I would have got my version. I mean, I'm not kidding. Like as a 15, 16-year-old girl, thinking about how I wanted to design some of my thoughts about life.
Yeah. Yeah. So I hope the next generation is set up for success in a way that we've kind of had to learn by the school of hard knocks. I think, it's a good reminder, like how we need to be intentional about finding community in this journey, because so much of why we felt kind of gatekept is because there has been that lack of representation. That's why I was adamant about being on the cover of my book as well. There's like enough money books with like white men on them. Let's spice it up a little bit. Let's put a neon pink blazer. Let's have some, fucking personality in this conversation, because when people feel like money's not such a scary thing, they feel more empowered to make decisions with it. And I always tell people, like, it's not just about the message, it's about the messenger too. Because how many times have you guys as money coaches given people advice and know that like it's not just enough to give someone strategies. They have to feel connected to a greater purpose. They have to feel acknowledged with the things that they've gone through, the mental health aspect. There's a lot of nuance to this conversation. And so I feel like the more that we can diversify the space, it's only going to help potentially change the world. And maybe that's just my super like lofty goal, but I really do see this as the start of something big. I hope that this is a wake-up call to publishers about why they need to be also creating opportunities for more voices in our community to have an impact, because there's a lot of need that needs to be filled.
So to close this out, for the listener who might be listening to this very episode right now and is on the verge of quitting, what is something that you would want her to hear today?
Write that damn resignation letter, because I'm going to tell you that is something that I did way before I actually handed it in. It's almost like that's the first step to giving yourself permission to explore the fact that like this could actually be possible. And I say it's everybody needs multiple streams of income at this point. Those safe careers, those safe jobs, like they don't exist. I think the pandemic was a big wake up call for a lot of people of just like how quote unquote disposable we are. Like as humans, we see that happening now again with another round of layoffs. I feel like millennials have gotten the short end of the stick since birth. It feels like, we've just graduated into a recession, come of age in a pandemic. I don't even want to know what's in store, but you got to give yourself the financial protection of knowing that you can be your own money printer. So if you're feeling like you want to quit your job, there's obviously a reason. You're either being underpaid, it's a toxic environment, maybe you've just outgrown that. Give yourself permission to change the situation. I think it's so toxic that we as a society expect 18-year-olds to figure out what their life's mission is going to be and then proceed to sign up for 6 figures plus worth of debt for some shit where you literally have no guarantee of how this is going to pan out. Yeah. So I like to invite folks to explore the idea that we are living creatures who will evolve as our environments change. And there's going to be seasons. And if this season for you right now is like, I need to quit this fucking job, do it. Make a plan, but do it. Do not wake up one day in your 60s and think to yourself, damn, I just spent like the majority of my life doing some shit I didn't even enjoy. Because that to me is like, it's dying before death.
End scene. End episode. We're done. So where can people find you, and where do we want to find the book?
So the book is going to be available wherever you purchase books. Financiallylitbook.com is the best place to go to find out where your local retailer is. You can also pick up a copy of the audiobook, which is narrated by me. So if you like this episode, then get ready to listen to like 17 hours of my ranting about money. And I'm also going to be doing a book tour. So if you want to find out more about that, sign up for the newsletter. And I'd love to see you in a city in the US pretty soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for being with us.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Crush Your Money Goals podcast.
Please leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to this podcast. Your feedback helps us spread the wealth of knowledge to more women like you.
And if you'd like to work with me to help you answer the important question, if I'm on track to retire, be sure to snag my free financial independence planner at womenswealtheffect.com/planner.
And if you'd like to work with me to kickstart your financial freedom plan, you can grab the Cha-Ching Checklist, my free guide at crushyourmoneygoals.com/free guide.
See you next time.